Hello, and welcome to Theatre of Music and our live lesson today. So, our live lesson today is going to be all about cracking chords. But before we do that, we're going to do something just a little bit different at the start of today's lesson. We're going to have a listen to a piece of music. And this particular piece of music is by a French composer called Saint-Saëns, whose birthday is the 9th of October, and he was born in 1835. And this piece of music wasn't performed in public during his lifetime, which when you listen to it, you'll probably think, well, why not? It's really good, actually. So we're going to have a listen to it. And what I want you to have a think about while you're listening to it is how Saint-Saëns, the composer, uses the different elements of music to create this piece of music. And what does it make you think of? I've been really vague about what the piece of music is on purpose so that it doesn't lead you in any particular direction. It's your thoughts, your ideas, okay? Now, before I play this to you, I think it's really important that you understand that what you're listening to isn't, they're not live musicians. So I'm not going to go into the big ins and outs of it, but there's something called copyright. And if you play a piece of music by somebody who has performed it, you are under copyright law. And so to sort of get round that, Theatre of Music, me, I create all of these virtual tracks using a computer. And so all of these pieces of music, that means that all of these pieces of music can then be available to you on the Theatre of Music website for you to have a listen to. And I can create lots and lots of listening resources for you because they're not live musicians. They're not having to be paid. Unfortunately, I can't afford an orchestra. I'd love to be able to do that. And I can't play every single instrument within the orchestra. I'd love to be able to do that as well. So this is our way of getting around it. But I would absolutely encourage you to go and listen to live musicians play. I am a performer as well. I play music all the time. I go out and play music. And live music is so, so very, very important. But for situations like this, we have the computer, excuse me, to fall back onto. So we're going to have a little listen to this piece of music by Saint-Saëns. I'm going to disappear so that I am not a distraction while you're listening to it, because I think it's really important that you just focus on the music. You may have heard it before. So here we go. Okay. Now, let's see what you came up with. There we go. I apologise for the bump in the middle. For some reason, the keyboard, the speaker decided to jump off the table. These things happen. You just go with the flow. It can't be helped. So, how has the composer used the different elements of music within that piece of music? What sort of things have you come up with? And this is the perfect opportunity to say that if you are watching this live, you could go onto our Facebook page and write your ideas down underneath the link to today's lesson, and can get immediate feedback. That would be absolutely fantastic. Different elements of music. Now, so we looked a few weeks ago, we looked at pitch. So think about the pitch of it. Is it high? Is it low? I think it's quite high. It's very tinkly. It's at the top end of the piano. We'll come back to that in a second. Rhythm. The rhythm is actually quite fast. It's using very short notes because the beat, that's the pulse, that's the beat. And then you've got all these very tinkly fast notes over the top of it. So the rhythm to it is really quite quick. The tempo isn't. That's the speed of the music. But the rhythm, very short notes to create that fast sort of sound to it, very tinkly. We've also got structure. You could hear the same little tune, da 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 da, keep coming back, like an idea A, keeps returning. You've got dynamics. Apart from the bit where the speaker fell on the floor, was the music loud? Was it quite quiet? Did it change through the piece of music? Did it depend on how many instruments were playing? Did that sort of influence it as well? Which brings us to texture. How thick and thin the sound is. How many instruments are actually being used to give it that sort of texture, that sound. And the timbre, what instruments were being used? Well, I've mentioned the piano. We've got string instruments as well. And there's a flute. And then there's something called a glass harmonica, which is a very unusual instrument, but it gave that sound at the end, where it's like what we call a glissando, where you just go phew in one movement from one note to another. So we've covered texture, timbre, dynamics, pitch, rhythm. We haven't thought about articulation. Is it smooth? Is it spiky? What do you think? Now, this particular piece of music is from a larger work called The Carnival of the Animals. And this particular piece is called The Aquarium. So it's supposed to sound a bit like, watery. You can imagine little fish swimming through. So this aquarium idea, it's worth having a listen to the rest of The Carnival of the Animals, because Saint-Saëns created music to describe different animals. There's an elephant. He's got a piece about the kangaroo. He's also got a piece called Fossils, which is about the bones that you would find under the ground of previous animals, like the dinosaurs or whatever. So you've got lots and lots of different animals represented through music. Okay, so I thought it would be useful to sort of bring together a little bit of what we've done previously to show you how it's used within a piece of music, and then to build on that, because we're looking at harmony today, and chords, which is linked to what we've talked about previously to do with texture. Okay, so we're sort of going back to the texture idea, but we're taking it to the next level, if you like. And let's see if we can do that. So we're going to look at what is a chord. What are chords? Chords are literally two or more notes that are played at the same time. So that's a chord because I'm playing two notes at the same time. That's a chord. I'm actually playing 3 notes at the same time. That's a chord. I'm playing 4 notes at the same time. So anything that has 2 or more notes played at the same time. They create harmony in a piece. And the most common type of chord that you can come across is something called a triad. Now think about the beginning of the word triad. Tri. What does tri mean? T-R-I. Where have you heard that before? Hopefully you've said triangle, because tri is the beginning of the word triangle, and triangle has 3 sides. And a chord that is called a triad has 3 notes. And so a lot of the chords that we use in music are triads. They are using 3 notes. So how do we work out chords? How do we know which chords are going to fit with the music? Now this, we're going to have to do a little bit more than just think about chords for this today, because chords are often based on the scale that's being used. And there's lots and lots of different types of scale that you can use to make a piece of music. But every single type of scale is made up of things called tones and semitones. And so to understand the whole chord thing, you need to understand really a little bit more about how a scale works. So we're going to do that little bit first. So there's lots of different types of scale. That's a pentatonic scale. It's got 5 notes. I did that just by using the black keys on the keyboard. That's one type of scale, but we're going to concentrate on the major scale today, because we use major scale a lot. And actually, when we did Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, that was using the C major scale. And so we're going to concentrate on the C major scale today. So, in front of you, and I am again going to get out of the way so that you can see what's going on properly. Let's see if I can do that. I'm not having much fun on it at the moment. Okay, let's try again. No, can't fade myself out today. So we're going to have another little go, and we're oh dear, you're just gonna have to put up with me in the corner, I'm afraid. For some reason I can't seem to get rid of me, which is a shame. Because I don't know what I've done to stop me being able to be got rid of, which is we'll try it one more time. No, it really isn't going to do it. So underneath me it says a tone is a movement of 2 notes, and a semitone is a movement of 1 note. So a tone is a movement of 2 notes, and a semitone is a movement of 1 note. And when we make a scale, it is a combination of tones and semitones, and whatever order they come in depends, you know, is basically what scale it is. So let's just have a little look at this. I know it's going to be a bit more difficult because I'm stuck there, unsure why, but if you look at the keyboard, and you can see that it has a C at the beginning of the keyboard. Okay, and we look at the C, and we then, having looked at the C, oh, there we go, managed it. Having looked at the C, we're going to count up 2 notes. Now, the black keys count as well. So it's not just the white keys, it's the black keys as well. So we start on the C, and we go up to the black key between C and D, and that counts as 1. And then we go down onto the next white key, and that is number 2. So C to D is a tone because we've done 2 movements. The black key between C and D, and then down to the D. A semitone is a movement of 1 note. So if we look at the keyboard again and we go to the note E, there's no black key between E and F. So if we move from E to F, we are making a movement of a semitone. We are only moving 1 note. We can move from a C to the black key above it and stop there. That would be called a C sharp. That would be a semitone. If we went from, let's think, if we went from the black key that is between D and E, and we counted up 2, so E would be 1 and F would be 2, that would be a tone. So each scale is made up of these tones and semitones. Now, a major scale follows a specific pattern of tones and semitones. Each scale has its own specific pattern, and we're just concentrating on a major scale today, and we're calling it the C major scale because we're starting on the note C. And the pattern is tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. All of this information is on the worksheet, the resource that is on the live lessons page on the Theatre of Music website. So you can see all of this, and there's a picture of the virtual keyboard on there, and you can follow all of this information on there as well. So if we start on the note C, and it says that what we need to do is move a tone. So we start on the C and we count up 2. Now we've already done this, so this should be easy. We move from C to the black key and then back down to the white key. That's a movement of 2. That takes us to D. So we've got C and D. That's the first 2 notes of our scale. We then need to move another tone. So D up to the next black key is 1, and down to the white key is a movement of 2. So we've got C, D and E. We then move a semitone. There's no black key between E and F, so that movement of 1, E to F, is a semitone. From there, we have to move another tone and a tone and a tone and a semitone. Let's see if you can figure out what the next few notes are going to be. So we've done C, D, E and F. We've got to move a tone from F. What note do you think we're on? And then we move another tone. And another tone. And a semitone to finish. So you should have, we've done C, D, E and F. You should have then moved to a G and then an A and then a B, because they're all movements of a tone. There's a black key in between each time. And then B to C is our final semitone because there's no black key between B and C. So our C major scale, using our tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone pattern, is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That is our C major scale. All right. So we have our C major scale. We know how to work out a scale, and the pattern stays the same. It doesn't matter what note you start on, the pattern stays the same. So the scale will sound. I'm just starting on a different note each time, but I'm keeping the same pattern of tones and semitones. So you can hear that they are. It's basically the same pattern, just starting on a different note. We're going to concentrate on the C major scale because it doesn't have any sharps or flats. We're not having to use any of the black keys today, which would make it a little bit more complicated. Right. Now we can start thinking about our chords. So, how do we work out a chord? Chords are how we create the harmony and the accompaniment to our melodies. We've already talked about what a chord is. It's two or more notes played at the same time. And the notes of the scale are used in these chords. We've just established what our C major scale is. Now, the primary chords, the most important ones, that's what primary means in this context. A bit like primary evidence in history. You have primary evidence, you have secondary evidence. The primary evidence is the main evidence. It's the most reliable. The primary chords are created using the first note, the fourth note, and the fifth note of the scale. So in C major, the first note would be C, the fourth note would be F, and the fifth note would be G. And so we make our chords using that note of the scale as the first note of our chord, of our triad in this instance. We would normally write a number under these chords in Roman numerals. We use Roman numerals for chords to try and stop confusion, because there's a lot of numbers in music, as you know. You've got your time signature, sometimes you've got numbers written over the top to tell you which fingers to play. If you're using a keyboard, you might have numbers written in if you're playing from guitar tab. So there's a lot of numbers used in music already. So to avoid confusion, we use Roman numerals. So we would have an I, an IV, and a V written under these chords for the Roman numerals 1, 4, and 5. So our first chord that we're looking at is the chord C. It's the first note of the scale, it's chord 1, and so we would play the C. Now, the deal on this is that you basically are playing, in this instance, C is written, it's middle C, and it's written on a line. It's on its own special line. We would then play the next line, which is E, and the next line, which is G. We'll play a note, miss a note. Play a note, miss a note. Play a note. That's why that's written at the side there. Play a note, miss a note, play a note, miss a note, play a note. So if I do that on the keyboard, there's the C, I miss out the D, I play the E, I miss out the F, and I play the G. And there's my chord. That's my triad, chord 1. The fourth note of the scale is F. C, D, E, F. And so IV would be written underneath it if we were putting numbers under the chords, represent chord 4 in Roman numerals, and we start on the note F. And we have the F, we miss out the G, we play the A, we miss out the B, we play the C. There is our chord 4, our F chord. And then finally, we have our chord 5, V. And it is G. It's a G chord in the C major scale. So we start on the fifth note of the scale, C, D, E, F, G. We start on the G, we play the G, we miss out the A, we play the B, we miss out the C, we play a D. So we have our primary chords, our main 3 chords, C, F, and G. Okay, now that covers every single note in the musical scale. Those 3 chords, if you look, we've got a C in chord 1. We've got a C in chord 4, the F chord. We've got a D in the G chord. The next note of the scale would be E, so that's covered in chord 1. The next note of the scale would be an F, that's covered in the 4th chord, the F chord. And you can go through the whole scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and you can find every single one of those notes from the scale in those 3 chords. And that's why we use those as the primary chords, the main chords that we would use when we were writing a piece of music or playing a piece of music in the C, using the C major scale, because you can cover every single note of the scale just using those 3 chords, sometimes referred to as a 3-chord trick, okay, because they cover every single note of the scale. Now that's quite important, I think, for you to, I mean, there are lots of other chords. We could make a chord on chord 2. We could make a chord on note 2, so that would be a D. We could create a triad. We could create a triad on the 6th note of the scale on the A. But it doesn't, we wouldn't cover every single note if we just used the C chord, the D chord, and the A chord. It wouldn't work. Chords 1, 4, and 5 are the go-to chords, and then you put all the rest of them in as secondary chords that will just beef it up and make it a little bit more interesting. Have a go. I mean, it's going to be very difficult if you're following this on YouTube and you haven't got access to a keyboard picture or a keyboard itself, but have a go at playing these chords. First of all, try playing them with your right hand. I was playing them with my right hand then. Try playing them with your right hand, because sometimes you will play those chords in your right hand, but then have a go at playing them with your left hand, because if you're playing a melody in your right hand, you would need to play the chords in your left hand. If you've got a copy of the downloadable resource that's on the website, you've got a picture of the keyboard, the one that you can see on screen, and so you could use that to help you to sort of play the chords that we've been talking about. Obviously you won't hear anything because it's on paper, but you could try playing the chords and moving your hand and getting those chords quite easily. The only thing I'd say if you're doing the paper copy is that at the end where it finishes with C, you would have to imagine, or you could draw on the end, a D, so that when you played the G chord, G, B, D, you'd got enough notes. Then try playing it with the left hand once you've done it with the right hand, so that you've had a go at using both hands to do it. Okay, because I do think that that is quite important. Now there's a little piece of music there which you could have a go at learning. Again, this is on the resource that is on the website. So the piece is written down and it's just a little tune. Using crotchets and minims. It's 4 beats and a bar. It's in the treble clef. So we're playing it with the right hand. And then once you're happy at playing the melody in the right hand, you could put the chords underneath. So it would sound like this. All right, so you're just using those triads and moving your hand. And if you're remembering that you're using 1, 3, and 5 to play, so if you were in the right hand, you'd put your thumb on the C, and then the E and the G would be your middle finger and your little finger. If you're doing it with your left hand, you'd put your little finger on the C, your middle finger on the E and your thumb on the G. It works exactly the same. It's just obviously, you know, it's the opposite way round because of how your hands are. So have a go at learning the tune, have a go at learning the chords, and then have a try at putting the two together. And you have got your own little piece of music with accompaniment. You have created a piece of music that has got a fuller texture, that is using harmony because it is using the chords. It's quite a lot to take in, and it's one of those that sort of lessons that I would definitely say, watch it again, go through it and be really sure about how the chords work, how the scale works, what is a scale, all of that sort of stuff. And if you're using the live lesson stuff, I've got one here. This is the resource that's being used for, it's on the website. It's actually got a little keyword section at the bottom as well, which tells you what the words mean. So a scale, what it is, a tone, a semitone, a chord, an octave. Didn't talk about the octave, but a C major scale, C to C, is 8 notes. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. 8 notes, oct, as in 8. It's an octave. So from the C to the C is a distance of 8 notes. All of the information, and just to sort of show you the first page, there's the first page, there's your little picture of a keyboard and all the information about tones and semitones, and there's that melody that I've talked about, just written down as a melody, and then on the second page it's written down with the chords. So everything is there to help you. Next week we have our last live lesson of this half term. And the lesson will be about terrible tunes. So I'm quite looking forward to that. We're going to have a little listen to a bit more Saint-Saëns, and it'll be a different piece. It won't be from his Carnival of the Animals, but we're going to have a look at a few other pieces of music and what makes music a bit scary. How can you do that? How can you create these sort of terror tunes, if you like? So that's what we're going to be doing next week. And then after the half-term holiday, so we're going to take 2 weeks. After those 2 weeks, we're going to come back and we're going to be looking at a new topic, and we're going to be looking at the music of the Tudors. So we're going to go right back in time and look at Tudor times. Now, I'm really enjoying creating all of this stuff for you and teaching these live lessons and creating the music and the soundtracks and everything else to help you. But for me to keep doing this, I'm going to need some help from some of you. All of this is done for free. All of the resources are on the website for free. But I also have to live. And so if you feel that you could contribute £5 a month, it's optional, but if you feel that you can, if you go to the coffee.com Theatre of Music and subscribe, £5 a month, it would help hugely towards sort of being able to continue to do this. And if you do, then you will also be able to have, you'll also be sent a magazine every quarter that has got quizzes and fun facts and activities, all music related, that will go out every quarter. So if you feel you can, it would be very, very much appreciated. Other than that, there isn't very much more for me to say. It's time for me to disappear, and I will see you next week for our terrible tunes. Bye bye for now.